What do you? What do you? What do you?
Welcome to our new video. Today we discuss top 9 armies in human history. 9. The Qia dynasty. China's ancient Qia dynasty could wield a force of 12,000 men in the 2nd millennia BCE. The Qia dynasty maintained a fighting force of 12,000 men, a considerable feat in the primitive Bronze Age. The only Western civilization to come close to that during his same era were the Uruk of Mesopotamia. The short-lived empire dominated the Tigris and Euphrates with an army of just 4,000 troops in the 3rd millennia BCE. 8. Egypt. Ancient Egypt produced history's first 100,000-man army in 1250 BCE, during the reign of Ramesses II. Before his death at the then unheard-of age of 90, the mighty pharaoh, who would become known as the Great Ancestor, unleashed his massive military in a series of campaigns against the Hittites, the Nubians and the Libyans. 7. Persia. The 6th century BCE, Persian Emperor Cyrus the Great was able to field 500,000 spearmen, archers and mounted warriors. His was the first army ever to break the 500,000-man barrier. In fact, the civilization is still considered to be history's largest empire proportionally. Up to 44% of the Earth's inhabitants at the time, a total of 50 million people, lived under the Persians. Cyrus's descendants were eventually bested by Alexander the Great in the 4th century BCE. The world's next 500,000-man army emerged during the height of the Mauryan Empire of India around 300 BCE. By way of comparison, at the peak of Roman power in 400 CE, the emperor's legions never exceeded 475,000 men. 6. The Mongols. The Mongol army shattered the million mark in the late 13th century. No other army up to that point had ever achieved such power. From its beginnings as a nation of nomadic herders, the Mongols emerged as a fearsome and near unstoppable fighting force under their first emperor Genghis Khan. After a century of bloody conquest, the Mongols controlled virtually all of Asia and much of Eastern Europe. Yet within a single lifetime, the vast empire would disintegrate into a patchwork of warring factions. A century later, China's Ming dynasty would build a million-man army of its own. The next largest military on Earth at the time belonged to the Ottomans. At 100,000 men, it was only a tenth as large as China's. But it was still the mightiest in the Western world. 5. France. Conscription allowed Napoleon to put an unprecedented 2.5 million Frenchmen in the uniform between 1800 and 1815. Over the next century, Europe's increasingly modern and industrialized militaries would expand considerably, setting the stage for the prolonged bloodbath that was the First World War. 4. Imperial Russia. Imperial Russia's vast military had swelled to just under 6 million soldiers. Only Germany, with 4.1 million men in arms, came close to matching the Tsar numerically. By 1918, no country had more troops in the field than France. As many as 8 million men were fighting for the Third Republic by the November 11th armistice, nearly 45% of the country's adult male population. For its part, Germany put a total of 5 million soldiers on the front lines between 1914 and 1918. But even that wasn't enough to counter the 42 million the combined Allied powers had mustered by the war's end. 3. The United States. The demobilization of United States armed forces after the Second World War began with the defeat of Germany in May 1945 and continued through 1946. The United States had more than 12 million men and women in the armed forces at the end of World War II, of whom 7.6 million were stationed abroad. The American public demanded a rapid demobilization, and soldiers protested the slowness of the process. Military personnel were returned to the United States in Operation Magic Carpet. By June 30, 1947, the number of active duty soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen in the armed forces had been reduced to 1,566,000. 2. The Third Reich, Germany. 6 years of secret Nazi rearmament had transformed Germany's token 100,000-man self-defense force as prescribed by the Treaty of Versailles into a powerful 4.7 million-man war machine by 1939. It was the world's largest at the time when war broke out. German troop levels would more than double over the next 4 years, topping 11 million men in 1943. But by 1945, the United States military had reached a peak strength of 12 million soldiers, sailors and airmen. At no time before or since has a nation had so many of its citizens in uniform. Even the Soviet Union, as formidable as it was in the final year of the Second World War, never exceeded 11 million. 1. China. While Beijing's true intentions remain uncertain, one thing is clear: since the end of the Cold War, China has emerged as one of the planet's most formidable fighting forces. With more than 2.2 million men currently under arms, the PLA is by far the world's largest military. Only the US and India come close with 1.4 million and 1.3 million troops respectively. North Korea and Russia round out the top 5 with 1.1 and 1 million man armies. Do not forget to like if you like this video and subscribe for more videos like this.